The grand amphitheater of New Geneva floated in Earth's orbit, its crystalline walls reflecting the blue marble below. Built as humanity's first diplomatic station, it rivaled the ancient Roman Colosseum in grandeur, yet surpassed it with impossible architecture that defied gravity itself. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the floating crystal seats, beings of light, shadow, and every form between. Dr. Elena Vasquez adjusted her diplomatic sash nervously as she watched from the observation deck. As Earth's xenobiologist and cultural attaché, she'd spent years studying these species, but seeing them gathered in judgment over her world made her heart race. Her dark eyes searched the crowd until they found him, Commander Marcus Chen, standing alone at the chamber's center. Marcus wore his dress uniform with quiet dignity, the faded earth patch on his sleeve telling stories of countless battles. His weathered hands wore scars from the Titan offensive, and silver touched his temples, but Elena saw past the warrior exterior to the man who'd once shared quiet moments with her in the botanical gardens of Luna Station. High Chancellor Zephyr of the Andromedans rose from his throne, his crystalline form catching starlight like a prism. The chamber fell silent as his voice resonated through quantum speakers. Humans of Earth, you stand accused of defying the galactic collective. Your fleet destroyed our peace envoys. Your world refuses integration. Explain yourselves. Elena's breath caught as delegates from 100 worlds turned hostile gazes toward Marcus. The Venari delegate, her serpentine body coiled in disgust, hissed, "This is Earth's champion? This scarred soldier?" Laughter erupted from the Krillian delegation, their insectoid cliques echoing mockingly through the chamber. Does this creature think to intimidate the collective? Marcus remained motionless, his steel-gray eyes scanning the crowd with the patience of a man who'd faced worse odds. Elena remembered those same eyes looking at her with infinite tenderness during their last night together before the war began. Now they held the weight of humanity's survival. "Commander Chen," Chancellor Zephyr's voice boomed, "you may speak before sentence is passed." Elena pressed her hand against the observation window, willing her strength to reach him across the void. Marcus stepped forward, the platform beneath his feet igniting with photon circuits that mapped his heartbeat for all to see, steady, unafraid. "I am Commander Marcus Chen of the Earth Defense Force," his voice carried clearly through the vast space. "I speak for 6 billion souls who chose freedom over chains. I am the one who met your fleets at Titan's rings. I am the one who sent your armada home in flames. I am the man who stands between Earth and those who would cage her." The chamber erupted in outrage, but Elena felt her heart soar. This was the Marcus she'd fallen in love with, not just a soldier, but a protector who carried humanity's hopes in his scarred hands. "You offered us peace," Marcus continued, his voice cutting through the chaos. "But peace built on surrender is no peace at all. You showed us your protected world, silent, obedient, empty of the dreams that make life worth living." Chancellor Zephyr descended from his throne, his crystalline form pulsing with energy. "You speak of dreams, human, but what are dreams against the reality of our power?" Marcus's hand moved to something at his chest, a small, worn medal Elena recognized. Her grandfather's Congressional Medal of Honor, passed down through generations of warriors who'd stood against impossible odds. As the tribunal's judgment loomed, Elena closed her eyes and whispered a prayer to whatever gods watched over lovers separated by war, knowing that everything they'd built together hung in the balance of this moment. Elena's mind drifted to 18 months earlier, before the first contact turned to conflict. The observation deck of Luna Station had been their sanctuary, where she'd cataloged alien flora samples while Marcus planned defensive strategies. Their love had bloomed quietly between duty and discovery, stolen moments in a universe that seemed infinite with possibility. "You're thinking of her," came a gentle voice behind Marcus. Dr. Sarah Kim, Earth's lead negotiator, had positioned herself strategically near the defendant's platform. Her diplomatic robes bore the insignia of the United Nations, but her eyes held the warmth of someone who'd watched Marcus and Elena's courtship unfold during those peaceful days. Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Only someone who loved him could have caught that tell. Elena had always been able to read his micro-expressions, the way his left eyebrow would raise when he disagreed, how his shoulders would set when he was preparing for battle. "Chancellor." Zephyr raised his hand, and holographic displays materialized around the chamber, showing Earth's military installations, images that made Elena's blood run cold. The collective knew everything: their defense grids, their fleet positions, even the hidden research facilities where she'd been developing theoretical weapons based on alien biotechnology. Behold, Zephyr announced, the pathetic defenses of a primitive world. Your orbital platforms number fewer than our scout ships. Your technology is crude metal and fire compared to our quantum mastery. The Krillian delegate chittered with amusement. Their ships cannot even achieve proper faster than light travel. They crawl between planets like insects. Elena watched Marcus absorb each insult without flinching, but she knew him well enough to see the storm building behind his calm exterior. During their time together, she'd learned that his stillness wasn't emptiness, it was the eye of a hurricane. Gathering strength, Ambassador Lyria of the peaceful Centauri Federation rose gracefully, her luminescent skin casting soft blue light. Elena had studied her species extensively. They were philosophers and poets, beloved throughout the galaxy for their wisdom. Commander Chen, Lyria's melodic voice carried genuine curiosity. Why does Earth resist what others have found beneficial? The collective offers protection, advanced technology, an end to want and war. Marcus turned to face her, and Elena saw something shift in his expression, not the hardened soldier addressing enemies, but the man she'd fallen in love with, who could discuss ethics and philosophy until dawn broke over Luna's horizon. Ambassador Lyria, he said, his voice softening with respect, your people chose to join freely after decades of cultural exchange and mutual understanding. But choice implies the right to refuse. When that right is removed, protection becomes imprisonment, gifts become chains. Elena remembered their last conversation before the war began. They'd stood in her laboratory aboard the research vessel Prometheus, surrounded by specimens from a dozen worlds. Promise me, she'd whispered against his chest, that if this goes badly, you won't let them change who we are. Now, watching him stand alone before the tribunal, she saw that promise being kept. Marcus reached into his uniform and withdrew the medal, her grandfather's Medal of Honor, which she'd given him the night before his deployment to Titan. The simple bronze star caught the chamber's ethereal light. This belonged to the woman I love, Marcus said, his voice carrying across the vast space. Her grandfather earned it defending strangers on a foreign beach. Her father wore it while exploring the asteroid belt. She gave it to me before I left, for Titan, and I carry it as a reminder that some things are worth fighting for. Elena pressed her hand to her heart, feeling the echo of the inscription she'd read to him that night, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty. The chamber had fallen silent, and in that silence, Elena felt the weight of love spanning the void between them. Dr. Elena Vasquez gripped the observation deck's railing as the tribunal's energy shifted. Below, Marcus held her grandfather's medal like a talisman, and she could see in his stance the man who'd once confessed his fears to her in the quiet of Luna Station's botanical gardens. He'd told her then that he didn't fear dying, he feared failing the people who trusted him to stand between them and the dark. Chancellor Zephyr's crystalline form darkened with displeasure. You speak of love, human, as if emotion could shield you from our might. Your sentimentality is precisely why your species requires guidance. Guidance? Marcus's voice carried a dangerous edge that Elena recognized from their arguments about military ethics. I've seen your guidance on Kepler for to be a thriving world of artists and dreamers, now a factory planet where former poets mine quantum crystals in perfect, silent efficiency. Ambassador Lyria shifted uncomfortably, her luminescence dimming confirmation that Marcus's words held truth. Elena's research into collective territories had uncovered similar patterns, worlds stripped of their cultural uniqueness, populations optimized for productivity over passion. The Venari delegate slithered forward, her scales reflecting the chamber's light in hypnotic patterns. Order brings peace, Commander. Chaos brings only suffering. Whose order? Marcus challenged. And whose definition of peace? He stepped onto the central platform, the quantum circuits beneath his feet now displaying not just his vital signs, but somehow projecting the emotional resonance of his words. Elena watched in fascination as colors swirled beneath him, deep blues of conviction mixed with the golden warmth of love. Captain Yuki Nakamura materialized beside Elena on the observation deck, her stealth infiltration gear making her appear like a ghost given form. As Earth's Special Operations Commander, she'd volunteered for the suicide mission of getting close enough to document the tribunal. Her presence meant Earth's backup plans were in motion. He's magnificent, Yuki whispered, her usual stoicism cracked by admiration. "Did you know he volunteered for this?" Command wanted to send a diplomat, but Marcus insisted. He said no one else should carry the weight of speaking for Earth. Elena's heart swelled with pride and terror in equal measure. Of course he'd volunteered. The man who'd once spent 3 sleepless days nursing her through Rigelian fever wouldn't let others face danger in his place. Marcus raised the metal higher, its bronze surface catching light from distant stars visible through the chambers. Transparent walls. This metal represents something your collective cannot understand: the choice to sacrifice for others, not because you were ordered to, but because love demands it. Love is weakness. The Krillian delegate buzzed through her translator. Is it? Marcus's smile was fierce, predatory. Love made me study every tactical manual, every historical battle, every possible scenario to protect what matters to me. Love taught me that victory isn't about being the strongest, it's about being willing to pay any price for what you cannot bear to lose. Elena remembered their final night together, how he'd mapped every constellation visible from Luna Station, whispering that no matter how far apart they were, they'd share the same stars. Now those same stars bore witness to his defiance. Chancellor Zephyr's patience finally snapped. Enough philosophy. Your emotional appeals change nothing. Earth has one final chance to submit willingly, or we will take what cooperation we require. By force. The chamber's atmosphere grew heavy with menace. Weapons systems that had remained hidden began to reveal themselves, quantum disruptors emerging from the walls, gravity manipulators descending from the ceiling. The tribunal hadn't been just a court, it had been a trap. But Marcus smiled, an expression that made Elena's pulse quicken with recognition. It was the same smile he'd worn when he'd solved the impossible tactical problem at the academy, the same smile from their first kiss under Luna's artificial aurora. "Chancellor," he said softly, "you should have asked what else love taught me." The chamber's walls suddenly blazed with incoming transmission alerts. Elena's breath caught as she recognized the encryption signatures. These weren't distress calls, but coordinated military communications. Captain Nakamura's infiltration gear began displaying tactical overlays that made Elena's scientific mind race with possibilities. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet," came a familiar voice through the quantum communicators. Elena smiled despite the danger. Marcus's younger sister, the tactical genius who'd earned her command through brilliance rather than bloodline. "Commander Chen, do you require immediate extraction?" Marcus's response carried across the chamber with quiet confidence. "Negative, Admiral. Maintain current position and prepare for full tactical broadcast." Chancellor Zephyr's crystalline form pulsed with alarm. "You dare violate the sanctity of this tribunal with military threats?" "Not threats," Marcus replied, his hand still clutching Elena's grandfather's medal. "Truth." The chamber's holographic displays flickered, then blazed to life with images that made the assembled delegates gasp in shock. Elena watched in awe as the screens showed not the primitive Earth fleet the collective expected, but something magnificent and impossible. Ships filled the view screens, sleek vessels that combined human engineering with technology Elena recognized from her xenobiological research. The hulls bore Earth's insignia alongside symbols from dozens of other worlds. These weren't just human ships. They were vessels crewed by species the collective had dismissed as conquered or irrelevant. Dr. James Morrison appeared on one of the communication channels, his weathered face beaming from the bridge of what looked like a massive research vessel converted for war. Elena's heart leaped. Her former research partner had survived the purges on Titan Station. Behind him stood figures she recognized. Dr. Zheng Wei from the Kepler expedition, Commander Rodriguez from the Mars Colonial Defense, and others she'd thought lost. The research stations weren't destroyed, Elena whispered to Captain Nakamura. They were hidden. More channels opened, revealing the scope of what Earth had accomplished in secret. The screens showed former collective protectorates now flying Earth's colors, not through conquest, but through liberation. Planet after planet where Marcus and others like him had offered not dominance, but partnership. Ambassador Lyria rose slowly, her luminescent form trembling with what Elena recognized as hope. "The Centauri colonies, they've joined you willingly? Freedom has a way of spreading," Marcus said, his voice carrying the warmth that had first drawn Elena to him during those quiet moments studying alien cultures. "When you offer beings the choice to be themselves, they tend to take it." Elena watched the political calculations racing behind every delegate's eyes. The collective's power had been built on the assumption of human weakness and isolation. Now, That foundation crumbled before their eyes as world after world declared independence, not through rebellion, but through exodus to join Earth's growing alliance. The Venari delegate hissed in fury, but Elena caught something else in her serpentine. Movement sphere. The rigid order that had defined the collective for millennia was dissolving into chaos, and chaos meant change, and change meant opportunity for those who'd been held down. Chancellor Zephyr's crystalline form had darkened to near black, his quantum matrix destabilizing with rage. This is impossible. Our intelligence networks, our surveillance systems were compromised from the beginning, Marcus interrupted. Did you really think Elena Vasquez was just a botanist? Elena felt her cheeks burn as every eye in the chamber turned toward the observation deck. Her cover, maintained for 3 years of careful infiltration, finally blown at the moment of victory. She'd played the role of innocent scientist while feeding intelligence to the resistance, using her xenobiological research as the perfect cover for understanding collective technology and weaknesses. Captain Nakamura grinned fiercely. The woman you thought was just a soldier's girlfriend has been running the most successful intelligence operation in galactic history. Below, Marcus looked up at the observation deck, and across the void of space and politics and war, Elena saw in his eyes the same love that had sustained them through 2 years of separation and deception. The chamber erupted in chaos as delegates realized the full scope of Earth's deception. Elena descended from the observation deck via the emergency transport tube, her diplomatic credentials replaced by the insignia of Earth intelligence. As she materialized on the main floor, Marcus turned toward her with an expression that mixed military respect with intimate love. Dr. Elena Vasquez, he announced to the stunned assembly, Director of Xenobiological Intelligence and Architect of Humanity's Liberation Protocols. Elena stepped forward, no longer hiding behind the persona of a simple scientist. Her voice carried the authority of someone who'd spent years studying every species in this chamber, learning their strengths, their fears, their deepest cultural drives. Distinguished delegates, she began, her tone commanding attention. You've been told that Earth stands alone, primitive and defiant. The truth is more complex. The holographic displays shifted to show detailed cultural analyses Elena's life's work. Each species' psychological profiles, their historical patterns, their breaking points and their dreams. The collective had ruled through ignorance, but Elena had turned knowledge into liberation. The Kepler colonies didn't rebel, she explained, gesturing to screens showing peaceful transitions of government. They simply remembered what freedom felt like. The Centauri protectorates didn't fight wars, they held elections. The Andromedan factory worlds didn't stage uprisings, they went on strike. Chancellor Zephyr's form flickered with instability. You manipulated them, infected them with your chaos. We offered them choice, Marcus interrupted, moving to stand beside Elena. Together, they faced the tribunal not as defendant and observer, but as partners in the truest sense. The same choice we're offering you now. Elena reached into her jacket and withdrew a small device, a quantum communicator that connected directly to every world in the collective. This transmission is going out live to every planet, every station, every ship in your empire. They're hearing your words, your threats, your promises of order through oppression. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of quantum processors working overtime. Elena could almost hear the sound of a billion minds suddenly questioning the narrative they'd been fed for generations. Ambassador Lyria was the first to speak, her luminescence brightening with what Elena recognized as joy. The Centauri Federation votes to withdraw from the collective and join the Terran Alliance. A ripple moved through the chamber. The Venari delegate shed her hostile posture, her scales shifting to colors Elena knew indicated curiosity, rather than aggression. The Venari sovereignty requests formal discussions regarding membership in this alliance. One by one, delegates began standing. Not all the core collective worlds remained seated, their representatives bound by centuries of rigid hierarchy. But enough rose to shift the balance of galactic power in a single moment. Chancellor Zephyr stood alone now, his crystalline form casting harsh shadows as former allies abandoned him. This is not over, he declared, his voice resonating with quantum harmonics that made the chamber walls vibrate. We will not be dissolved by sentiment and rebellion. Marcus stepped forward, but Elena placed a gentle hand on his arm. This was her moment, the culmination of years of careful study and planning. Chancellor, she said softly, you're not being dissolved. You're being invited to evolve. The Andromedan people have gifts the galaxy needs: your quantum technology, your mathematical precision, your architectural mastery. But gifts freely given create gratitude. Gifts taken by force create only resentment. For a moment, Zephyr's crystalline form wavered, and Elena thought she saw something that might have been uncertainty. Then his structure solidified into its harshest configuration. We withdraw from these proceedings, he declared. Let the chaos you've unleashed teach you the value of order. As Zephyr and his remaining loyalists departed, Elena felt Marcus's hand find hers. The chamber around them buzzed with the excitement of new alliances forming, old grudges being set aside, and futures being rewritten. So, Marcus said quietly, his words meant only for her, ready to help build a galaxy where love matters more than power? Elena squeezed his hand, watching through the transparent walls as Earth's fleet moved into formation alongside ships from a dozen worlds. I thought you'd never ask. The war was over. The real work was just beginning.